Recording in progress.
Okay. See if that-
Yeah.
Yeah, come on up. There-
What
no, you're
time
not.
does this start?
11.
Right now, it starts right now.
And action. Is Jay Reed?
You guys, who else is on there? Anybody? Just Leanne?
Leanne is.
Jesse should be sending you some docs, Leanne, so you can follow along with what I'm doing here. And.
We can't
Oh,
hear
there she
you.
is.
Can we hear her?
If she is muted. There, yes.
Remove. How do I unmute people?
Should be,
Need more come in?
yeah,
Unless they're in our paper.
yeah.
And then add Jane up top, Andrew. There you
I'm
go.
getting it. Who's that?
That's Jane.
Okay.
You have to leave the meeting.
I'm going to, I guess.
Just do what Steve does. All right, we're gonna give everybody a couple more minutes here. So everybody can.
Did you
join
hear
on.
Andrew? We're giving everybody a couple more minutes, then we're gonna start.
We want to see some faces. Carolyn. Yeah.
We like faces.
Yeah, who else is here?
Leanne and Jane.
We saw Jane or Leanne, she just left. I don't know if I have to unmute him or not.
You know,
You have the power.
Well, I unmuted myself, but I will mute myself when Dana would like to speak.
I got a few more things coming, then we'll do it. You coming in, Jay?
I'm coming in.
Come on in. It can stay open. All right, we'll get started and then whoever else comes can go, because I just got a few things before we get into these. Steve wanted me to mention a few things about, he wants everybody to make sure you guys know your purchase agreements. Lenawee County, you guys, is easy to do, but we are getting a lot of different purchase agreements from other counties and other different systems, like people from up in Flint, people coming from all over. He wants to make sure that you guys, instead of, just don't go through them quickly, make sure you are reading the purchase agreements, because taxes are always different. Sometimes they might be in advance, but sometimes they say calendar year. We don't do calendar year here in Lenawee County. So just make sure you're paying real close attention to any kind of a different purchase agreements that comes in. And then the other thing is, sometimes I am getting purchase agreements that are not necessarily all the way filled in. So just make sure that, I know sometimes it can be in a hurry and you're just throwing those together, but make sure that each and every part that needs to be filled in is filled in. And if you guys are the buyer's agent, you don't know the sellers, just say, when you turn it in, just say, hey, I don't know who your sellers are. Can you write their names on the line for the sellers? Because it is a contract and we do need the sellers' names there. And then if the agent is someone who's not you're able to work with real well or anything, you can always go on the tax site or somewhere like that, RPR or something, and try to find the seller's name, even if it's just a last name. But just, I would like those not to be blank, if that's possible. And I think that's mainly it. So we'll just kind of go through these. We're going to talk mostly about matching purchase agreements up with title work and closing statements. And it's nice because two of the ones I picked in here, three of the agents were part of it, so they can join in and help me on these. So I think the first one we're going to do, if you have it in your email, Jesse was sending those out, is and I don't know if I have it for everybody, is the 376 Scott Street.
Is this what I put on the
Yeah.
screen? Should I put this on the screen?
You can if you
How
want,
do I do that?
but I don't have it. Oh, do you have it in your email? I don't know how to do that. That's why I said I was just gonna send them to everybody and they can pull them up and on their
That's
own.
not- That's not.
That's
Somewhere.
not nearly what you want to do.
I don't know how that works.
There you go.
Okay,
Mm,
is that one
which
376?
No,
That's
that's-
228 Main, so I need, try,
Keep flipping through it.
there it is, 376 Scott. So, oh, thank you. So this one was, this one I was starting with because it was really clean and easy. And it was with one of Steve's listings that a Jackson agent wrote on. So the first thing is, let's go to title work on this. And Blue Point did that title work on that. So if you get over to that first page of title work, mostly Schedule A is where I want to start. You guys have that. So the first thing that I do is, when I get title work, I start going through it and I match it up to the purchase agreement. So the owner's policy is always going to be what your purchase price is. So I go back over to my purchase price and I see on the first page that it is 158, but then I make sure I go back through, because, you know, I don't know, you guys know your offers better than I do and what the actual purchase price is. I may not know that, so I just go back to page 5 or whatever page it is and make sure there wasn't any counter or anything. Or if I have an addendum that changed the price that maybe the title company didn't get, I make sure of that. So that's the first thing I do. I want to make sure that the purchase price is what I have in my docs. And then I make sure too is, do they have the same buyers here that I have on my purchase agreement? And those two matched up. They had both of them on there, Bert and Emily, so I'm good there. And then Huntington Bank, that's who I had down as who the loan person is, so they're the ones who are gonna be the insurers of it. And then my person that was selling the house is Cameron Clark, and that's right. The loan policy amount, I don't worry about, because that's more of what the lender needs to worry about. I don't have to worry about that at all. Mine is the purchase price. So when all of that on that page is good, then I go to the next page. And the next page, like 1 through 10 or 1 through 9 type things, some of those, I guess more 1 through 7 are pretty standard. Those are the same things you're gonna find on pretty much every title policy. So I go down and I see that they're gonna want, I have Cameron Clark needs to do a deed to the 2 buyers, and those names are all correct. And then they want a mortgage to be recorded because Emily and Bert are getting a loan, so that's gonna be recorded. And then 10 is more of a lender thing. I kind of skip past that. And then 11 is my next thing that I'm gonna pay attention to, because this was our listing. So I see that she still has a mortgage out. And that tells me I gotta go back through all my paperwork and make sure I have a payoff authorization for her. And if I don't, that's when I'll be sending out to you guys. I need that payoff authorization filled out and signed. But if you guys start going through this and see these things, then you can just actually take that upon yourself and say, oh, I gotta get that payoff authorization to Dana. So the next thing I do is I go down and I see the tax ID. And I look at that, and I go to see if it's anywhere on the purchase agreement. Lenawee County, we always usually have a tax ID. This one in Jackson actually does. So I match those 2 up and make sure that we're on the same property. And make sure that there's only one piece of property being purchased. Because sometimes you have the tax ID on there, but maybe there's an extra lot that didn't get put on the purchase agreement. But it's in title work because it shows up under their name. So that's when I usually say, hey, there's another lot on this on showing up on title work. We need to add an addendum to add that lot on there. So we make sure we're all buying the same thing. And then I just kind of look and see it looks like some taxes are due and some are paid, and then there's assessment on here for $30. You just kind of keep that in the back of my mind for when that's gonna come up later, when we go through the actual closing docs. Schedule B, those items on that page are pretty much, on this particular one, are pretty standard. Those are gonna be on every one, so I don't really have to worry about them on this one. Later on, when we go to the next two, we'll see some things and we'll talk about those on that one. And then just the legal description on there. So that one, as far as title work, was very standard. It was pretty clean, not a lot you have to do with that. So that's an example of one that matched up to my purchase agreement. Title work is clean. Now I'm gonna go to the closing docs. And these are things that you guys should, when you send them to your seller or your buyer, you guys should kind of be going through these, should be closing right there, Andrew. Closing docs that,
I don't think this is for the same.
this one. They should be at the end there. There they are. Is that 376? Yes.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So you guys should be going through these. If you don't, I know most of you probably are. But if you are not going through these detailed with your buyer and your seller, you need to do that. So they know what all these numbers mean, and they don't get to closing and they go, wait a minute, what does that mean? What's that? What's that? I mean, they still may have questions, but generally they should know what they're getting charged for, what they're bringing money for, what they're paying out, what they're getting credit for. Those kind of things should be gone over in detail with them. So the first thing, again, I do I have the right address? Do they give that? That's correct. Do I have the right borrowers again? Yes. Do I have the right seller? Yes. Is the closing date the correct closing date? Make sure that the close date they have on there is actually the date you are closing. And then we go down to sales price, correct sales price. If it was my buyer, do they have his earnest money on there? Make sure he's getting credit for that. Then we go into where we go into the taxes. Now, I'm not gonna try to sit here and tell you how to figure out the prorations for taxes. You talk to Steve on that, because I'm horrible at that.
You can't show us the,
No, but, and we'll come to one of those here in a little bit, where I'll show you that stuff, but we'll wait.
yeah, no, go ahead, Dana.
But if you look down here, and match it up to the taxes that are kind of on the, on here, and see like the, let's see if they put that on here anywhere. The taxes that were due, those were just prorated because it must have been before they had the winter taxes. And this closed in 2/1. So they got the trash and they prorated it for the first quarter because the buyer is not going to live there the whole time. And then, yeah, see 299.64, that matches up to that winter tax that was prorated. And then the summer tax of $1,372.19, that was prorated. Those numbers match up to what's on my title work. So I like that. Those all work out good. So I don't try to worry myself about where these taxes are prorated right, but that's something, you guys may want to dig into and know to make sure that those are prorated right for your buyers and your sellers. Again, that's not one of my expertise, so I don't dive into that real well. So this was a seller, so I want to make sure, yep, they have her mortgage on there, they're paying that off. Then you want to come down and make sure your real estate commission is right. Is that what you guys agreed to? Are the splits right? You want to make sure that that is right. And then that's where they put the broker fee. So you guys will start seeing that more now with new offers and new listings that are being sold. You'll start seeing where we have that broker fee on there. Now, if you guys are paying that on behalf of your buyers or sellers, that won't be on there. We'll just take that off of your sheets at the end when you guys get your commissions. And then since we were the seller on this, I skip over to the next page. Shows how much they had to pay for their owner's policy. And then how much they had to pay for a closing fee to Blue Point. And then just their transfer tax.
I got a question.
Yes,
Will the transaction fee or whatever we're
Mhm.
calling that, is that gonna be on the title work as well?
I don't think it's on title work,
Well, I mean,
closing
your
statements.
closing
Yes,
statements,
those will show up
I-
just like that
Okay.
now, like that ER Reardon one did.
Yep.
It'll show up on there against either the buyer or the seller.
Yeah, I
Yep.
misspoke when said that.
Yep, those will start doing that. So that's just an example of a really clean purchase agreement. And that closing went smoothly, easily. That was a nice one. Now, get into some good stuff.
Now, put mine in chocolate.
Yeah, where's Jay's at?
We are. We're going to Beth and Jay's
Uh-oh.
on,
this
and I
one?
don't think you guys have that. It's 7525
Yeah.
Silverhorn.
Oh, yeah.
So we can get Jay and Beth involved in this one because this was a fun one.
Tell us
No
where. we went
habla
wrong.
inglés.
Let me find these for you guys. Anyway,
Yeah, there was plenty of
this
ink on
one
that
had many little avenues involved in it. So,
More than we knew, more than we
and
knew.
Beth and Jay worked their butts off on this one.
Beth did.
There you
Jay
go.
sat back as a cheerleader.
Like, I'm letting you share with Mike, Jay, because I need to
Okay.
read this, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Here, Andrew.
Mhm. I'm looking
I'm
up.
on-
You'll know
yeah, I
this
got
one.
mine.
You got yours up
I
there?
got 'em up
Okay.
there, yeah.
All right. So 7525 Silverhorn. This is one Jay and Beth co-listed together. And so again, you know, this is a whole
I
different
was hoping
purchase
I'd never
agreement.
hear her beginning.
This is one I think is from like MI Real Source or Michigan Realtors. So it's a different kind of a purchase agreement. So this is an example of one you could just look at and kind of get familiar with, so you know what's on it.
Out of
Type
Monroe.
thing. Yeah, out of Monroe. So let's go right to title work first on this. Let's pull title work out to match that.
What was there a title word? Did we figure out there was a
Yeah.
title?
Extensions.
So this one is, again, we had with Blue Point. And this particular one, let's just start at the beginning. So we have our price on there, which is 220, was good. The people to be insured, which were the buyers, and those matched up with, see, on this one, they don't necessarily put the names of the buyers right at the beginning. But if you go back and look who signed it, and then that matches that up. So that's how I do that kind of thing. And then, so this one is listed under the Eisman Family Trust, dated October 2nd in 2003. So that right there throws a clue to me and a red flag saying that's a really old trust. We're probably gonna need an updated certificate of trust because that one is a pretty old one. And they want something current to make sure nothing has changed in the trust, that they didn't add new signers or somebody got mad at somebody, so they aren't able to sign anymore, those type of things. So there's gonna be more about that as we come up, but that's one thing that that's gonna be a red flag. I gotta remember, I'm gonna need an updated trust. So if you go to Schedule B, if you go here, then like 1 through 6, pretty much, you know, the same. 7's good. 8, you know, we're gonna need a deed, but on 8, here we go again. This is something that's going to cause a red flag. Because this person, the Eisman Family Trust, was in a land contract with someone else, a Stephen and a Coopshaw and a Kuhn. So Coopshaw and Kuhn would have been the buyers for this, and the Eisman Family Trust would have been the sellers. So when you look at that, most of the time, it's the flip. It's the person selling it were the buyers and they're in a land contract with somebody else. But on this one, the person selling it is in a land contract with someone, and it must have been not fulfilled, that land, because
Right.
the Coopshaw and Kuhn should be the one in a normal situation would be the people who are trying to sell the house because they have the land contract. But since Eisman is the person who's trying to sell it, that tells me these two people must have defaulted on their land contract. Jay and Beth, did that happen?
Yes,
Yes.
that's where the story begins.
So that was kind of a big thing with that one. So either one of you want to explain a little bit about what happened with that particular part right there? That would be a good thing that Jay and Beth had to, I mean, this property took a lot of effort on Jay and Beth's part, and they did a great job. So I'm gonna let them chat on that just a minute.
So basically, we had, just like what Dana said, we had the default of the land contract going back to the Eismans. At that point, there was a death, I believe, from the previous defaulter on the land contract. So we had no signatures basically giving the land contract over back to the Eismans. They had possession of the property, but really no fulfillment of the whole contract on the land contract. So she had a lawyer involved, and at that point, Beth and I just pretty much let the lawyer chase everything down, and it took quite a bit of time to do it, but we couldn't get any type of title or anything like that until we got some signatures from a family member of the deceased. So it was quite a show, but once the lawyer was involved, Beth and I just pretty much were hands off at that point.
Yeah.
Did you know? that there
No.
was- Like when you wrote on it, you didn't know there was a land
Yeah,
contract?
we knew that. We didn't know the extent of
How dirty
them
it was?
having to search and find. We knew that the defaulting party had passed away. But at the point where the lawyer really drug his feet on it, and it really made the deal a lot more difficult. It should have been done long before they even thought about selling it. And he just was lazy on it and never fulfilled his part of getting the signatures on it. I mean, he may have been able to get them when the guy was alive, who knows? But he didn't do his part, so it made it difficult for us. So we had to go through court. They finally found a living survivor of the person who defaulted, and they signed off,
Nice.
so that nice after
Yeah.
3 months,
Long time.
but it was,
And fortunately, they had a very patient buyer,
yeah,
because most people would have just, moved on, but the
they really
buyer
wanted the house.
wanted the house,
Yeah.
so that worked out real well. So most land contracts don't happen like that. Most time you have somebody who is very willing to get their money when this closes, and it's a flip situation. So this is just one that ended up being quite different, and fortunately, there was a lawyer involved, so we didn't have to really chase that defaulter down, but you never know. There could be times when, you gotta do that kind of stuff. So the next one is where we talked about the certificate of trust. So they're requiring a certificate of trust to be recorded at closing. So that will be confirmation that on that first page, yes, I need a current certificate of trust. And then this next part just talks about, you know, the deeds and the mortgages that will be recorded. Now, one thing that doesn't show up on this title work, but one thing that did come up because normally this would be something that is required, was this was a mobile home. And we needed to have a certificate, an affidavit of a fixture. So I'm gonna let Beth talk a little bit about the process of what happened and why we couldn't get an affidavit of a fixture.
Because they redid the whole manufactured home, they took out all the cupboards, they sided it, they did everything, so, and they didn't leave any tags, like any inside where it's in the cupboard, so we spent a lot of time on that, and then Stan took over from there about that as well. So.
Tags
Yeah.
like.
The
bin
bin,
number
well, yeah,
tag,
they're usually in the cupboard
plate,
closet, they did
like
every place that
Yeah.
it was supposed to be, it was not.
So for those of you who have never dealt with a mobile home before, it's like a car. You have to have a title to it. And this place had no title. It was really old. And if they're built way back, you may not have a title. So that's why you have to go. And Beth went with her person. They were gonna go apply for lost title. But they couldn't even do that because they had no serial numbers, they had no HUD numbers, they had no plates. So we were kind of at our wits' end as to what we were going to do. And Beth was like running and running and running, trying to get this figured out.
That's the one where you took a metal detector to the side.
Yes,
trying to find it.
Yes, I mean,
I just
she
came up to
did,
the
they
point
did,
where
yeah, they did all kinds of
I
stuff trying
figured
to
they
find
just
it.
sold it out of
Yeah.
Alabama and parked it there.
It's a FEMA trailer.
So, and most lenders and most title companies require that affidavit of a fixture. But thank goodness for Frank Rains, because he called me and I called him and I said, you know, Frank, what are we gonna do? We can't get this. And he goes, that mobile home isn't going anywhere. I'm not requiring it. We're not gonna worry about it. So we didn't have to do anything with the affidavit of a fixture. The lender didn't require it, which surprised me to no end, but we kind of snuck through with that one without any title or
I can't
affidavit of
believe the
fixture
lender
on that
didn't
one.
Yeah, that's
I
crazy.
know, I just was shocked that a lender was not requiring
What kind
that,
of
but
lenders do you use, man?
Not me, baby.
I-
So,
that one,
that was out of Monroe.
so that was another one on this, so that was fun. And then, so you go to Schedule B, that's pretty similar. Then we go back and look at that tax ID and make sure that that's matching. If it's on the purchase agreement, there may not be one on this one, but it does have kind of a spelled out legal description. So I just kind of look at that, and make sure, I don't go word for word, but I kind of look at the first few lines and make sure they're of the same thing, and it is matching that, so we're good on that. So, and I put a second one in there just because a lot of times Frank will send me updated title work. And if you get updated title work, you just want to go through it and see if there's anything added or something. I know it's upside down. Something changed or something else you need to look for that one. So that is that. Let's go to the closing statements. And we have on here, you know, just go through the purchase price. We are the sellers, so I'm mainly concerned about what the seller is doing. So, you know, there's the property taxes again. You might want to go through those. This particular home had a lot of other issues. So there are attorney fees, there were some liens, there were some different things that needed to be paid off. So those are all on there. That's where you'll see some of the lien stuff that the seller kind of needed to get taken care of through this closing. So you can see that it was a good thing that Beth and Jay did the work they did. Otherwise, this lady could have still been saddled with all of this money she owed these people. But they got the work done, and now she was able to get rid of these liens and these places she owed. So, you know, kudos to them for the hard work they did on this. And there's commission. And then if you go back, you know, same thing, there's transfer tax. that type of thing, and the closing fee. That went fairly, the closing, I think, the first part went fairly smooth. You know, there was a few issues that I won't go into because that was just a seller kind of thing, but once they got the clear to close and they were good, we got that taken care of for them. All right, the next one, 228 Main.
Time to pick on
Yes,
me.
that's Mike's turn. So this one really is, there's nothing in it that is alarming as far as title
Yes.
work and type thing. The contract was clean. It was actually between Josh and Mike, and it was a cash deal. And, you know, again, title work shows the right things, right purchase price. There's was nothing really that the seller had to bring as far as death certificates or certificate of trust or anything like that. My main focus on this one is I want you guys to go back to the page that talks about taxes. And you can,
On the purchase agreement?
well, we're gonna do the seller statement, go to it. And then we might be going back and forth between the seller statement and Schedule B, parts 1 and 2, where the taxes are. So when we were getting ready for close, Mike was going through, you know, his closing docs, and he came and said, Dana, can you look at these and tell me what you see on these and why these are so different? So, you know, I told you this person owed a lot of back taxes on this particular home. So when we went and looked at what the actual taxes were, Mike said, I'm just not adding up on here what they're telling me that she has to pay off. And so actually, I'm gonna let Mike talk a little bit about what he came up with and what.
Yeah, we were racking our brain trying to come up with, because I'd already informed my seller on what she could expect her proceeds, but then the final seller statement came through and it was a couple of $1,000 worth
Yeah,
of differences
yeah.
there between what her proceeds would have been. And we just couldn't make heads or tails of it. So we ended up having to call both the title company and express our concerns with it. And they got back with us, then we had to get the township involved and ended up back, because she had owed so much in back taxes and back utilities. What wasn't showing on the initial title work from the township was penalties. And so then all of a sudden, then we thought, well, there's no way these penalties could be that severe for just, you know, sewer bills and water bills. Well, we were wrong. And it equated to, over the years that she had back taxes, over the 2, 3, maybe 4 years, that it equated to close to $2,000.
So the
Of
taxes
penalties.
were paid, but it was.
No, taxes weren't paid either, so that compounded it even more.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay.
But, and it was the way it came through on the title work. So, you know, as much as the title work comes through, those are still, until they see the final declaration from each individual township and whatever entity is owed by the closing date, what the penalties are, those a lot of times aren't included in the title work. So I lesson learned again, it's like, okay, when I tell my sellers that these are gonna be your proceeds, it's an estimated. We have to wait for those final ones to finally come through. Luckily, my buyer was very understanding, and there is gonna be some ongoing legal battles with it, with her and the township, because they had shut the utilities off years ago, and she was still getting charged for it. But she wanted it to close, she wanted to get out of it, she'll fight a later date.
Mhm.
So with Dana's help, and with township's help, and with Chad and Prestige's help, we finally were able to be comfortable in saying, okay, seller, this is what you're gonna get charged, and you have to, you have to pay the piper.
Yeah, so I think the thing on this is that I want you guys to take away from this is don't think just because you get a statement from a title company that they're 100% right. If you see something on there that you don't agree with or you have questions about, call them and question them. That's what we did. Mike and I called Chad And we said, we're just not seeing, according to title work, what was on here, we're not seeing these numbers. Why are they, you know, a couple $1,000s more? And Chad was very helpful. He actually emailed us the final billings that he had received from the townships and the villages and things like that. So Mike was able to share those with his seller, so she understood, these are the numbers, this is why you're paying this much more. So don't be afraid to call the title company and say, hey, can you explain to me how you came to this number? Or I don't agree with this, you know, especially to check commissions. Sometimes they don't have it right. So check that and make sure that it is what was written in the MLS. And then for anybody who leaves, if it's not our listing, and if you are a buyer's agent and went to a title company that we don't normally work with, when you leave, make sure your commission check matches what is on the closing statement. Because a lot of times, even though we bring the EMDs to closing, I have an agent come back with a check and it's short what the EMD was. And we'll say, so we just call the title company and they have to reissue it to us. But a lot of times they have their checks already made up and they just assume you're not bringing the EMD to closing. So just double check those checks and make sure they match up to what's on the closing statement. But again, you know, if you have questions about anything that's on title or your closing statements, you can call me and I will help you as much as I can. But sometimes it's just as good to go to the source, to that title company, and talk to that person who was the examiner on that and ask them, what do you need? Why is this on here? And you start to learn a lot. You start to learn a little bit more. But does anybody out in La La Land have questions or comments? If you want to unmic, I don't know if you can unmic or not.
Share
I don't have any questions.
Okay,
the red up on there. You go.
There we go, we're back.
all right. Anybody else have any questions? I know for you guys that are new, you all have a lot of them as you go, but this is all probably foreign to you.
Hey,
I have a question.
No.
hold on, I'm gonna mute him.
Let Steve was allowed in these meetings.
Hi, Steve.
Jess said he's not.
Did I mute him?
Can't be a question about what you're having for lunch.
Right, thanks for lunch, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is she doing in a different
Back
office?
there, this is way too.
What do you want, Vern?
I felt left out, so.
All
Oh,
right, guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for everybody here helping. That's it.
That's it.
I probably won't ever do these again because I don't like doing them.
No, that was good. We'll get Dana on the docket for next week.
Yeah. No.
What's that?
Stop it.
I have to stop it and.
We're done.
And
Are
you
we
never
done?
Down at the bottom, Andrew,
You never hit
where the
record.
pause button is.
You never hit record.
Yes, I did.
Hit the